I turned 27 last spring, and yet some days I feel like I never left my parents' house. Not because I still live there, I left at 21, but because their voices echo in my head, controlling every choice, every hesitation. When people see me now, they see a woman in crisp suits, heels clicking across marble floors, a steady gaze that makes boardrooms fall silent. But when I look in the mirror, I still hear my mother's sharp whispers, "Don't embarrass us," and my father's heavy voice pressing down like a gavel, "You'll never make it without us." The invitation arrived in a cream-colored envelope, thick enough to scream importance. My cousin's engagement party at the city's most luxurious hotel. I almost tore it in half, ready to toss it away like I had done with so many family events. But something in me paused. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe it was exhaustion from running all these years. Or maybe, just maybe, it was the flicker of anger that still lived in my chest. Anger that had never really gone away. So I went. The ballroom gleamed in gold and crystal. The kind of place where money didn't just talk, it sang. Chandeliers poured light onto gowns dripping with sequins. Laughter bubbled over champagne glasses. I held my breath as I stepped through the doors, telling myself I didn't care if they stared. Still, my hand trembled when I adjusted the strap of my dress. I wasn't here to show off. I was here to remind myself that they couldn't erase me. It didn't take long. My mother spotted me first. Her eyes widened, a flash of recognition, then narrowed into the cold steel I remembered from childhood. She leaned toward my father, whispering urgently, and within seconds he was striding toward me, every step a warning. "What are you doing here?" he demanded, his voice low but sharp enough to cut glass. I smiled, though it felt brittle on my lips. "I was invited. It's family, isn't it? You're not welcome." He blocked my path as if I were an intruder at my own cousin's celebration. Heads turned. Conversations faltered. I felt the familiar heat of humiliation crawl up my neck. The same shame I'd felt when they locked me out at 21 with nothing but a suitcase and the words, "Don't come back." But this time, I didn't shrink. My husband Michael stepped beside me, his hand resting firmly at the small of my back. His voice carried calm authority. "She has every right to be here. We were invited, and we RSVP'd. Now, if you'll excuse us, we'd like to congratulate the couple." The name Michael rippled through the crowd. Whispers spread. They knew him, the Harvard-trained surgeon, the man who'd pioneered new cardiac procedures. My father hesitated, his mouth tightening. For once, his authority meant nothing. Not here, not in this room full of professionals who respected accomplishments more than family gossip. I walked past him, my heels echoing against the marble, each step a rebellion. And then I saw her, Grace, my younger sister. 25 now, wrapped in a gown of pale silk, her hair pinned with pearls. She was standing near the stage, laughter spilling from her lips as if nothing in the world could touch her. But when her eyes met mine, her smile faltered. She froze, champagne glass suspended midair. For a heartbeat, we stared at each other across the glittering crowd. 11 years collapsed into a single second. Grace had always been the favored one, the golden child. When I worked nights to save for college, she toured Europe. When I begged for help with tuition, my parents drained my fund to send her to private conservatories. They told everyone I was unstable, that I'd dropped out, that I'd run away, because I couldn't handle life. And people believed them, because Grace shone with the kind of polish only privilege can buy. But standing there, in that ballroom, I realized something. I had built my own shine. My name was no longer the one whispered with pity, but the one featured on panels, the one attached to Medova, the healthcare company changing post-surgical recovery across states. And while she smiled with borrowed confidence, I carried the weight of battles won with my own blood and sweat. The introductions began soon after. My cousin beamed, introducing her fiancé, laughter rolling across the microphone. Guests clapped, glasses clinked. I tried to blend into the background, but whispers kept finding me. That's her, the CEO of Medova. A silver-haired doctor approached, shaking my hand with genuine respect. Your system is revolutionizing patient monitoring. Extraordinary work. I saw Grace watching, her glass trembling slightly in her hand. Her perfect facade cracked, just a little, and behind her eyes, I saw panic. Later, when the music softened and guests drifted to the buffet, my mother cornered me. Her lipstick smile never reached her eyes. "You've made your point. Now leave before you ruin the evening." "Ruin it?" I asked softly. "Or expose it?" Her nostrils flared. "You've always been jealous, always trying to steal Grace's spotlight." I laughed, low and bitter. "Spotlight? You stole my tuition. You stole my future. And still, I built a life brighter than anything you imagined for me." For a moment, silence hung between us, thick and suffocating. My mother's mask slipped and I saw the truth, fear. Not of me, but of what others would think if the lies unraveled. Michael appeared again, his presence grounding me. "Enough," he said firmly. "We're not here to argue. We're here to celebrate. If that's too much for you, then perhaps you should leave." Her lips tightened, but she stepped back, defeated by the quiet dignity she couldn't tarnish. I found myself near the balcony later, the night air cool against my skin. Grace slipped beside me, her perfume sweet but cloying. For a long moment, she said nothing. Then her voice cracked. "Why did you come back? You were supposed to stay gone." "I came back," I said evenly, "because I stopped being afraid of you, of them, of the lies." Her eyes filled with tears, but they weren't for me. They were for the crumbling tower she'd built on stolen stones. I turned back toward the glittering ballroom, where doctors and investors and cousins mingled. For the first time, I didn't feel like an outsider. I felt like someone who belonged. Not because my parents said so, not because Grace allowed it, but because I had carved my place with my own hands. At 27, I finally understood. Control is only power if you hand it over, and I wasn't giving it to them anymore. This time, I was the one writing the story. The night should have ended there, with whispered conversations, stolen glances, and my quiet defiance. But fate never grants such tidy closures. Instead, the evening unraveled further, thread by thread, until the entire fabric of my family's lies began to tear in front of everyone. It started innocently enough. Daniel, my cousin's fiancé, made his way through the crowd, shaking hands and greeting relatives he had never met before. His charm was effortless, his confidence unshaken. He stopped when he reached me, extending his hand warmly. "Amber Collins," he said, his tone carrying curiosity. "The Medova CEO. I've read about your work." Impressive doesn't begin to cover it. The name echoed again. Medova. I watched it travel like a ripple through the room. Whispers started, not of scandal this time, but of respect. The guest leaned closer, intrigued. I smiled politely, shaking his hand. "Thank you. It's been years of work." That was when Grace appeared at his side, slipping her arm through his with a smile stretched too wide, too brittle. "Daniel, darling, don't bore her. She probably doesn't want to talk about work all night." But he didn't look at her. His eyes stayed on me, sharp with the curiosity of a man who had just stumbled onto a puzzle piece he didn't know was missing. "Strange," he mused. Grace never mentioned that her sister was the woman leading one of the fastest-growing medical tech companies in the country. The silence that followed was heavy, punctured only by the clink of glasses somewhere across the room. Grace's hand tightened around his arm. "Amber and we don't stay in touch." "That's one way to put it," I replied lightly, though my heart pounded with the old ache. "We haven't spoken in 11 years. Daniel's brow furrowed. "But you said—" He stopped himself, catching the edge of a lie before it fully slipped free. His gaze darted between the two of us. He didn't press, not yet, but the seed of doubt had been planted. I excused myself, not wanting to linger in the storm brewing between them. But as I turned, I caught my father's voice, harsh and barely contained. "You need to control this, now." The word control rang in my ears. It always did. They had controlled everything once. My education, my friendships, even the narrative of who I was. They controlled the story so thoroughly that for years, I questioned whether I was the villain they painted me to be. And here it was again, the same command, spoken with the same authority, as if I were still the trembling girl with a suitcase, only I wasn't. Later, when the music softened and dessert was being served, Grace cornered me in the ladies' room. Her mascara had smudged, her smile stripped away. The door clicked shut behind us, sealing us in a bubble of old ghosts. "Why are you doing this?" she demanded, voice breaking. "Doing what?" I asked, washing my hands slowly, watching her in the mirror, making me look like a liar in front of everyone, making Daniel question me. "You couldn't just stay gone?" I dried my hands, folding the towel with deliberate calm. "I'm not making you look like anything, Grace. You did that yourself. I'm just existing, and my existence threatens the story you built." Her face crumpled for a moment, before anger returned to fill the cracks. "You think you're better than me? You always have." "No," I said softly. "I just stopped letting them decide who I am." Her hand slammed against the counter, rattling the glass jar of roses. "You don't understand. Without their approval, I'm nothing." I looked at her then. Not the polished woman in silk, but the frightened girl who had always needed the spotlight, the validation. For the first time, pity stirred in me, but pity wasn't forgiveness. When I walked back into the ballroom, conversations halted. My father stood near Daniel, his hands moving in sharp, agitated gestures. My mother's face was pale, her smile stretched thin as she tried to steer guests away from the tension. But Daniel's posture told the truth. Stiff, alert, no longer enchanted. "Amber," he called across the room. "Can I ask you something?" All eyes turned. The weight of expectation pressed down. I crossed the marble floor slowly, each step echoing. "You graduated?" Daniel asked, his tone careful but probing. "Yes." "From Stanford?" His eyes flicked to Grace, then back to me. I shook my head, steady. "No. I worked my way through community college and then state university. No family support, just 3 jobs and stubborn determination." The murmurs started again, some shocked, some admiring. Grace's lips parted, her complexion ashen. Daniel's gaze sharpened. "That's not what I was told." I felt my father bristle behind me, his voice low and venomous. "That's enough," but Daniel ignored him. "So which one of you is lying?" The silence was suffocating. My parents froze, Grace trembled, and I simply stood tall. The truth needed no embellishment. It carried its own gravity. The rest of the evening unraveled quickly. Guests whispered. Some approached me directly, asking about Medova, about the systems I'd developed. They spoke of innovation, of contracts, of future possibilities. Grace's name faded from their lips, replaced with mine. For once, I wasn't invisible. I could have exposed it all. The stolen tuition money, the lies, the favoritism. I could have detonated their carefully constructed image in front of everyone. But instead, I did something far more devastating. I stayed calm. I smiled. I let my success speak louder than their lies. By the time I left, hand in Michael's, Leo tugging at my other hand, begging for cake, the whispers had shifted completely. No longer about scandal, but about admiration, about resilience, about me. In the car ride home, Leo fell asleep in the back seat, his small chest rising and falling with the peace of innocence. Michael squeezed my hand gently. "You did it." "Did what?" I asked. "Proved that they don't control you anymore." I stared out the window, watching city lights blur into streaks. He was right. For the first time, the chains were gone. Weeks later, the fallout reached me through hushed phone calls and distant relatives. Daniel had started asking questions. Grace's stories cracked under the weight of scrutiny. My parents scrambled to protect her, but the truth seeped out like water through broken glass. And me, I didn't have to lift a finger. At 27, I learned that fighting back isn't always about shouting louder or striking harder. Sometimes it's about standing so firmly in your truth that their lies collapse on their own. The girl they threw away had built a fortress from the stones they hurled. And now, standing within its walls, I felt untouchable. No apologies, no reconciliations, just freedom. Because they could only control me for as long as I believed them. And I didn't anymore.